Okay, so at this point, you know you have a pelvic organ prolapse, or at least you suspect it. So what do you do about it? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. If you didn't already watch my What is Prolapse video, go watch that right now and then come back for this one. So you already know there are three types of pelvic organ prolapse. A rectocele prolapse has to do with your rectum pushing into the vagina or pushing against it. The cystocele prolapse is your bladder pushing against the vagina, and a uterine prolapse is the uterine coming down into the vagina and pushing all of that down. And, the muscles under here help support the pelvic organs. You also have ligaments and all of that that help support them. It's not entirely the muscles, but especially with bladder and rectocele prolapse, the muscles tend to correspond with which type of prolapse you have. So, for example, if you have a cystocele prolapse, so that's your bladder pushing into the vagina, look at where the bladder is inside the pelvis. It's in the front. So, and you can see all of that happening here, right? I always mix up urethra and some other words. So I paused before saying it because I was like, I don't want to say the wrong word. But you can see the urethra connects essentially to the bladder, right? And so the muscles in the front of the pelvic floor are the ones closest to the bladder, and they're the ones that close off the sphincter so that you don't pee when you don't want to pee, and they relax it when you do want to pee. So if you have a bladder prolapse, there's a chance that there's something going on with the front of your pelvic floor muscles. And so it could mean that your pelvic floor muscles are just weak and you need to work them more. And or it could be that they're extremely tight and they are trying so hard, but they just can't tighten anymore to help. And that's where the whole like learning how to relax your pelvic floor comes in. If you have a rectocele prolapse, look where your rectum is inside your pelvis. You see what's at the back and it, connects with the anus here. So if you were to go through there, you'd see the rectum in there. And look at all these muscles back here, right? So you've got like for the bladder, you've got the muscles up here, and for the rectum, you've got the muscles back here. So if you have a rectocele prolapse, there's a good chance there's something happening with the back of your pelvic floor. If the issue is that your pelvic floor is too tight, you might also feel that on your tailbone, which is a story for another day. You could go watch my tailbone video as well. So as long as you can think about like, and this is just put very simply, if I have a bladder prolapse, think front of pelvic floor. If I have a rectum prolapse, think back of pelvic floor. Then whenever you're doing pelvic floor exercises, pelvic floor breathing, kegels, anything, focus your energy there. Think of like for the front of the pelvic floor, think of nodding your clitoris down, and that's going to help engage the front pelvic floor muscles. If you're working on the back of the pelvic floor, don't actually tilt your pelvis under. Don't actually, every time you do it, go like this, but think of tucking your tailbone down or trying to engage the muscles around there. If you go to a pelvic health PT, they can do an internal exam and really check if the front of your pelvic floor muscles are tighter, stronger, weaker than the back versus the sides. They can really like give you, personalized attention with that and their expert opinion on that. But this is just kind of some simple at-home things to think about. So what do you do if you have a prolapse? Well, first, figure out what kind of prolapse you have so you know kind of where to focus on the pelvic floor. And then remember that it is a pressure management issue. So you need to make sure you are managing the pressure well, because if not, you're going to keep feeling the prolapse. You might make it worse. You might give yourself another prolapse, like in a different area. So that's when we start talking about intra-abdominal pressure. So go watch that video next. And of course, let me know if you have any questions about this one.